So good afternoon and welcome to our Module 152 weekly class meeting. Um, Today we are going to wrap up Module 152, look over some highlights of what we learned in this module. We are going to do a coding challenge together. This should be fun. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a challenge, but we'll get more into that in a few minutes. We're going to take a quick look at what you guys are going to be learning in Module 153. And then that's really it. Shouldn't be too long today. The coding challenge is going to be the thing that's going to take us the longest. But again, we're going to work through that together. So it shouldn't be too bad. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys so we can jump right in. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And you guys, I appreciate y'all that have your cameras on. And just a reminder, if you can put it on, please do. If you can't, that's okay as well. We understand sometimes you just can't. So today, we're going to go over a couple of announcements. Again, wrap up Module 152, do a coding challenge for ICD-10, and then we're going to take a look at what's coming up in Module 153. Okay, so as far as announcements, not too much going on, except for our module ends tomorrow. So everybody knows, we've got grades that we have to turn in by a certain point after the module ends. So if you've got to make up some assignments, now is the time to get with your instructor on that if they allow makeups. I know some of them don't. Module 153 is going to start bright and early Monday morning when we come back from the weekend. So we need to have Module 152 all wrapped up and finished so we can fresh start in 153. Because once we get to 153, we're starting some new stuff. So we want to just be, have our plate clear for that. And we are continuing on with NCCT prep every Tuesday at 4. Okay. And quick reminder down at the bottom, we appreciate you guys coming to Zoom, even though it's not mandatory. We appreciate y'all taking the time out of your day. But just a reminder, if there's ever a time where you can't make it, that's okay. But please do go back and watch the recordings, as you're going to miss, you might miss something if you don't watch the recording, watch the announcements, and just the little tidbits that we give you all throughout the meeting, about how things really are out in the work atmosphere. So we don't want y'all to miss out on that. So please, again, watch the recordings if you're ever unable to attend the Zoom meetings. Okay. All right, so just some highlights from Module 152, a little quick review. Some of the stuff that we learned throughout this module that you may want to just keep in the forefront of your mind, because you may see it, some of it on the final exam, the exam that's due tomorrow. What is the largest third-party payer? We know that we learned that was the American government, right? Medicare, Medicaid, the VAs, all that stuff. American government is our biggest insurance carrier in the country. What government organization is responsible for administering the Medicare program? That's going to be your Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, right? What's that website we love to go to? CMS.gov, right? And what form do we use to file claims? The CMS 1500. So, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. All right, the maximum number of characters in an ICD-10 code is what? 7, right? Some codes require us to get all the way out to that 7th character, some don't. It just depends, but it's never gonna be more than 7 at this point, okay? What are the 3 items that the Medicare beneficiaries are responsible for to pay? Medicare will begin to to pay before Medicare will begin to pay for services. And that was deductibles, premiums, and co-insurances, right? All right, just a couple more. We learned about HIPAA in this module, and that stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Y'all, throughout this program, y'all are going to have HIPAA questions, and they're going to ask about that dang abbreviation, and it's a tricky one. You got to know it's not. A lot of times people want to put two P's in there and one A, and you can't. It's the one P and two A's. Portability and Accountability Act. Okay. All right. And individuals covered under Medicare are called beneficiaries, right? Excuse me, I have a something going on in the background. All right, so another thing that we harped on you guys about when we were learning the coding is the steps for accurate coding, right? Because that's your all important process that you're going to use to find your codes. Identify your main terms, locate the main term in the alphabetic index, review the subterms under the main terms, follow and cross-reference instructions such as C, verify the code selected from the index in the tabular, refer to any instructional notations in the tabular, includes, excludes, all those that you find around your codes. Assign codes to the highest level of specificity. Watch your indentions, make sure you're indenting down as far as you can. Code the diagnosis until all elements are completely identified. And that just means coding all the codes you need to have included in your claim. All right, so our challenge for today. It is going to be one scenario. And I'll read it to you right quick. Patient in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, high risk due to age, pre-existing type 2 diabetes, history of cervical shortening and preterm labor with premature live birth and neonatal death of identical twins. Cervical cerclage placed at 15 weeks of pregnancy. There will be 7 codes you get out of this scenario. 7. So, but I'm here to help you break it on down. And some of this stuff, guys, you can do. This is going to do a lot straight out of chapter 15 from the obstetrical chapter, having to do with pregnancies and stuff like that. But you'll notice on a CMS 1500 claim form, there's place for I think it's 12 diagnosis codes, and you may think to yourself, when would somebody ever need all that? Well, this particular scenario is a real life scenario. This is actually my scenario during my last pregnancy. So this is a real life example of when coding can really get detailed, when you have a lot of information. And I will tell you this now, I can think of at least one code that I could have added to this. It could have been 8, but I thought this was enough to be going on with. So this is going to take us a few minutes to walk through this and nail this down, but it's a great example, and you're going to learn. The practice never hurts, right? And that's what it's all about with coding, is the repetition, getting the process down. Because, and I know y'all have heard us say this before, the process is the same when we start CPT next week. You're using those same steps for accurate coding. You're using your alphabetic index, then your tabular index. You're looking for keywords and things. But I will tell you this, CPT is a lot easier than ICD-10. Your diagnosis coding, your ICD-10 is a lot more, you don't have all the signs, the symbols, the stop signs, all the things with CPT that you have in ICD-10. So it's a little more straightforward, I find. Anyway, all right, so let's break it on down. What do we need to code? What are going to be the relevant things in this scenario that are going to apply to us? What do we need to pull out of here? In other words, keywords, things like that. So I kind of broke it down a little bit, since there is a lot of information in here. Um, Patients in the third trimester, that of course is going to be important. High risk due to age and pre-existing type 2 diabetes. Um, the high risk due to, anytime you see due to, that's kind of a clean indicator of a diagnosis, right? Something you're going to need to add into that record. History of, that's another big keyword that you should be picking up on by now. History of cervical shortening and preterm labor. Okay, so I underlined those because, those are things that the patient has experienced that might be relevant to this appointment. Okay. With premature live birth and neonatal death, same thing. It's part of the patient's history that could be relevant to this encounter. Okay. Because it doesn't tell us what this is, whether this is an office visit, a hospital visit, or anything like that. We're just getting some basic information. All right. I did not identify identical twins because that was for the previous pregnancy, not for this one. This is a single. It doesn't say it here, but we're going to assume it's single unless it states otherwise, right? We don't code what we don't know. Okay. So we know the previous birth was twins, multiples. This one, it does not say that. Cervical cerclage placed at 15 weeks of pregnancy. I had no idea what a cervical cerclage was until I had this done. So you may not know either, and that's okay. It's not a very common procedure. Placed at 15 weeks. I don't know if the 15 weeks would be super relevant or not, but I know that the procedure, the cervical cerclage, would definitely be relevant. Okay. Because that was something that was done during this pregnancy, this encounter. All right. So again, we're gonna need 7 codes out of here. So the first thing that I wanted to point out to you guys was the high risk due to history of. All right. So when you're looking at the pregnancy section in the alphabetic index, it's not a super big section by any means. Like some of them, there's pages and pages and pages. The pregnancy one's not like that. There's a few, but there's a few like really big sections of it. And one of them is it's complicated by, and then the other one is complicated by and see well, there's some for like newborn and different things, but big one is complicated by, that's the largest section in there. And part of the complications are the pre-existing conditions, things like that. And then the high risk factors. Okay. And anytime supervision, that's the other thing I was thinking. Complicated by and then supervision. Okay. Because there's a lot of different reasons why they keep an eye on you while you're pregnant. All right. So for me, the high risk due to history of, it was age, the fact that I had a history of preterm labor, and a history of neonatal death. Okay. If you have, I didn't include live birth in that because if you have neonatal death, that means the child died while it was after it was born. So a live birth is automatically assumed. Okay. If the child died after it was born. The preterm labor, premature labor, so that's what you're going to look for. You're going to go to the pregnancy section in your alphabetic index, and you're going to look for age, preterm labor, and neonatal death. Okay. And let's see. Let's go ahead and you guys go ahead and start finding that. In most of those, the high risk stuff is going to be under supervision. Okay. And I am going to look at it with you. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to skip to this here. All right, so on page 398 in my manual, 398 and then 2023, you have pregnancy, and then you have supervision of. And if you look up high risk, it'll tell you see supervision of, okay? And then high risk. All right, and you can't see it in the picture here, but supervision of is right above this elderly mother concealed pregnancy part. I missed one line in this picture. All right, so that elderly mother, that's age right there, right? That's your first high risk factor, elderly mother. Even though I don't consider, I was 36 at the time, I don't really consider that elderly by any means, but all right, so under elderly, we've got multigravida and prima gravida. Does anybody know what those mean? And if you don't, that's okay. I had to look them up myself. All right, prima gravida is going to be it's your first pregnancy. That's all that means. Multi, as in multiple gravida, is your second or subsequent pregnancy, basically. Prima gravida is one pregnancy. Multigravida is two or more pregnancies. So this would have been my second pregnancy, right? So I would be multigravida. So we would go to O09.52 to find the high risk due to age code. Okay. Now we're going to be going to the same section for a lot of these codes. Because like you can see down, if you keep following down, it has preterm labor there, O09.21. And then also under that, it says previous, and then neonatal death, O09.29. So we might as well look at all of these at the same time instead of flopping back and forth, right? That's why I broke it down like I did. So we could kind of look at all of these things at the same time so we're not flipping back and forth so much. Go through it a little bit quicker. And obstetrics having to do with pregnancy and stuff like that, guys, it's not something that you'll ever do a lot unless you work for a gynecologist or, you know, a women's health center or something like that. Then you'll see these codes quite a bit. But, and it's kind of specialized. You kind of have to know what's relevant and what's not and what you're looking for. Because when I went to look for some of these codes, I was like, wow, this isn't, they don't even have a code for that. It's not even a thing. So it just takes some looking into. You just gotta read. Pay attention to what you're reading, and you'll find what you need to find. Okay. So was everybody able to locate this in the alphabetic index? This section, the supervision of?
Yes.
Awesome sauce. And y'all see how I got there?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Good stuff. All right, so let's go to that O09 section since we've got 3 different codes that are going to be in that section and take a look at it. And we'll knock out those 3 codes right quick. All right. So I got in my 2022 manual, page 1164. I don't know for y'all if it's a little bit off from that or not. But this page starts with 009.A.
Yes, I would start off the same way.
Okay, awesome. All right, so if we start going down this first column here, and we're looking for, let's see, the one for the age, supervision of elderly, it gave us 009.52. So let's look for that. 009.52. It's going to be in that second column, a little above halfway down. It says supervision of elderly multigravata, and that's the 0.52. But you can see it has that red stop sign. So we have to look at our indent down, right? And the only difference between those indentions is first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester. So our code is going to be the one for the third trimester, right? 009.523. And that's our high risk due to age. That's our code for that. All right. Everybody see how we got that? Yeah? Cool.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So let's look at the next one. Higher risk history of preterm labor. It gave us 009.2. So that's going to be in the column before, almost up at the top. Supervision of pregnancy with other poor reproductive or obstetric history. All right, and it says, let's see, 2.1 says supervision of pregnancy with history of preterm labor. So that fits. And then the other one is what? Supervision of pregnancy with other poor reproductive or obstetric history. And that's the one right under it is for neonatal death. So we're going to have a code out of each of those. But again, we're in that third trimester, so we got to follow that indention. So the one for the preterm labor is going to be the 009.213. Supervision of pregnancy with history of preterm labor, third trimester. Okay. And then in that very next section, that next red stop sign is supervision of pregnancy with other poor reproductive or obstetric history. But right under that, it says supervision of pregnancy with history of neonatal death. I would say that that is a poor reproductive outcome. Yeah. And again, we're in that third trimester. So we're going to indent down to the 009.293. And that's our first three codes right there. That's the first three. The age, preterm labor, and the neonatal death. Most of our high risk factors are due to history, okay? All right, so let's knock out another couple. We have a complication of type 2 diabetes. That's a pre-existing condition for this patient. She had diabetes before she was pregnant. So it is not gestational diabetes, it's pre-existing, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go back to that pregnancy section of your alphabetic index, and you're gonna look under complicated by, okay? And you'll find type 2 diabetes, or it'd probably be diabetes, and then it'll say gestational, type 1, or type 2. It'll give you some options under diabetes. So find it for me and tell me what you guys get to.
So you
I got
said
it.
it would be under pre-existing, under pregnancy with complicated by?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
I found it.
Dang.
You better quiet down.
If we find the code, you want us to give it to you?
I'm sorry.
I said, if we find the code, you want us to give it to you?
Just let me know what you found in the alphabetic index when you get there. What code is it leading you to?
I came out with 024.113.
Yep, you got it. That's all the way in the tabular, right? When you
Yeah, that's the tab.
Yes.
And
The
in
index
the
and the tabular.
the index just gave you 024.11 with the stop sign.
perfect.
Well,
Perfect.
yeah, right.
That's exactly right. Okay, so now something I want to show y'all attached to that diabetes code, right? Go to page, I think it was 1170 in the tabular where you found that one. That close?
Yeah, they have the code for the Z79.4.
Mm, 24. Okay. No, we're not the Z79.4. No,
They
we're
have the E11 also.
oh the E. That's the one I'm wanting to look at. That's the one I'm wanting to
Oh,
talk
okay.
about.
It just says use additional code for from category E11 to further identify any manifestations.
Very, very good. All right. So if y'all flop to the page before, all right, where it says it wants the code out of E11, if you go to where this section starts on the page before at 024, that little green box right there above it, it
Uh-huh.
says doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Diabetes mellitus is a significant complicating factor in pregnancy. Pregnant women who are diabetic should be assigned a code from category 024, which is that category. Diabetes mellitus in pregnancy, childbirth, and the puerperium first, followed by the appropriate diabetes code or codes E08 through E13 from chapter 4. All right. But ours states under 024.1, our pre-existing type 2, that it needs a code from category E11. All right. So it wants us to use a diabetes code along with the pre-existing condition, right? To kind of back it up. Or to show if we have diabetes with some other sort of complication attached to it. So let's find, and here's the good thing about this. If it says you need a code from somewhere else in the book, it is not going to lead you back to the alphabetic index. It's going to give you that code section where you can go straight to it. So we can go straight to E11 and see what we need. So let's do that. And I took the liberty, page 760 is where we're going to find the code that we need. All right, now our scenario does not state anything about diabetes complications, right? It just says a pre-existing type 2 diabetic. It does not let us know if we are insulin dependent, if we have anything else going on or whatnot. Okay, it just says it's a pre-existing type 2. So I actually looked at all of the codes from E03 to E13 before and narrowed it down, and the code that we need is exactly in the E11. So if you look in E11, it gives you type 2 diabetes with a bunch of other complications, gangrene, neuropathy, hypoglycemia, all these different things. But then if you look at E11.9, type 2 diabetes mellitus without complications. There we go. Easy peasy. And that's code number 4 and 5. The 024.113 for the pre-existing diabetes out of the pregnancy section. And then the E11.9 from our diabetes section. Make sense? But you see how when you need those extra codes, the book tells you? Like it's going to tell you when you need something extra. You don't have to worry about, oh, what am I forgetting? What am I supposed to know this off the top of my head? No. No, that's why it's in this book. Okay. All right. So that's 5 out of the 7 right there, right? We got the age, the preterm labor, the neonatal death, and then we had 2 codes for our diabetes. So our last thing is the cervical cerclage. Now, this was one of those things that I looked for it, because to me, cervical cerclage was a procedure. They actually tried to do it my first pregnancy with the twins, but they couldn't do it. It was unsuccessful. They weren't able to complete the procedure. And it did happen. We did it at 15 weeks with my daughter that just ran through here a minute ago. We did the cerclage when I was 15 weeks pregnant with her, to make sure that the same thing did not happen that happened with my twins, which was the cervical shortening, right? Which we were lucky. We didn't have it. And I don't know if it's just because her pregnancy was a singleton and the other one was heavier, it was twins. Or if it was because that cerclage was in place and it kept my cervix where it was supposed to be. And it didn't open early for Paige, thank God. In fact, that child would not come out of the ribs. We had to do a cesarean on her because she would not be evicted. She did not want to go nowhere. She was full term and then some. So we're blessed the second go around with her. But so the cervical cerclage, I went to look for that in the alphabetic index, and honestly, to me, it's a little depressing because they call it shortening of the cervix is also known as an incompetent cervix, which I think is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But that just may be me being up in my feels about it, you know. But I just think that's stupid. But if you look up, you can look up cervix, and it'll tell you C condition. And you can look up cerclage, which is actually like one column over is cerclage, I think, and it tells you to look in pregnancy under incompetent cervix. Okay, so let me know if y'all look in the alphabetic index Go ahead and look for that and let me know when you see that, or that you find it, or where it takes you if you work ahead. Because some of y'all do that. Y'all are quick. Let's see. There we go.
Is it 034.3?
Yes,
And it
ma'am.
has the stop sign.
Yep,
So 034.32.
Nope.
Nope. 034.33.
that's right. 33.
Okay.
For that third trimester. Exactly right. Yep, and you'll see what it says. It says maternal care for cervical incompetence, but right under that it says maternal care for cerclage with or without cervical incompetence. So that's the code we use because number one, I technically did not have cervical incompetence with this pregnancy, but I did have this cerclage. And that's what they wanted in the record to be known, was that I didn't necessarily have cervical incompetence, but that I had something that made them put a cerclage in place, right? So they have this code where they have cerclage, maternal care for cerclage with or without. It could go either way. And then of course you indent down to let them know it's in the third trimester. But do y'all see how like 3 or 4 of these codes have all ended with a 3? Have all ended with a 3 because of that third trimester?
Yes.
You'll notice patterns like that sometimes with the codes, because everything goes, in that numerical order. All right, so very good. That's code number 6, is the cervical cerclage 034.33. Now, that's 6 codes. What do we think that 7th code is going to be?
For the cervical shortening.
What's that, Jared?
The cervical shortening.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Would it be the 15 weeks of pregnancy, the gestation?
Nope, because
Oh,
that's not the current gestation. The 15 weeks was when that cerclage was placed.
okay.
The patient is in the third trimester. So if you go to the beginning of the pregnancy section of the beginning of chapter 15, there's one of those little green boxes, and it says, whenever you use a code from this chapter, you also must use a Z code to let them know what week, not what trimester, but what week of gestation the patient is in, if it is known. All right, so we know that this patient is in the third trimester, but that's like an 8-week span, right? Or something like that, maybe even longer than that. If you go in the alphabetic index and you look under pregnancy and you go all the way to the end of pregnancy section and I think it says weeks of gestation, but it literally like lists them out.
Yeah.
So it would be not specified, being that they didn't say how far she was in the third trimester?
That is correct. It would be unspecified. So you see how it says weeks of gestation, and it goes 8, 9, 10, 11, blah, 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 all the way to 42. And then it says greater than 42, less than 8, or not specified. Ours is going to be not specified because we don't know which of those exact weeks she is. All we know is third trimester. So that last code is going to be Z3A.00. Good job, y'all. Good job. And look. These are all of our codes after it's all said and done. So, what did y'all think about that? Little bit complicated, huh? But not too bad. Not too bad. Like I said, with obstetrics, you kind of have to, once you start working in it, you know how they break things down. Complicated by, supervision of. There's only so many things in pregnancy that you deal with, but there's so many different procedures, medical conditions, all these different things that each have their own little sets of criteria. Okay, and that's what makes the guidelines important. The guidelines and all the little instructions that you find around your codes are going to tell you, that's going to lead you to your correct coding. Okay, so I hope y'all found that interesting. And like I said, that's just I always suggest that the way to get familiar with the manuals is to code yourself. And like for me, as you can see, I have plenty of diagnosis that I can play with, you know, to learn my manual and learn different, get familiar with things. Okay. So that was our coding challenge. I hope y'all got something, if nothing else, just a little bit of practice, you know? All right, so coming up in module 153, CPT, current procedural terminology, okay? ICD-10, International Classification of Diseases, Diagnoses, ICD. CPT, procedural terminology, current procedures. So your ICD-10 is what's wrong with the patient. Your procedural terminology is what's done to the patient, for the patient, on the patient. It's all the different surgeries, the different tests, things like that is going to be your CPT coding. Just like with ICD-10, guys, you see my tabbies. Tab your manuals. Tab your manuals. It'll save y'all a ton of time. All right, just like your other manuals. You want to tab them to save that time and start at the beginning before the chapters start. Now, one of the major differences between CPT and ICD-10 is where the alphabetic index is in the book. Instead of the front for ICD-10, in CPT, it's all the way in the back. All the way in the back. You start in the back of the book. So it's just flip-flopped. That's all. Okay. Another thing that we're going to get into great detail in 153, it is another 30-day module, is going to be assigning modifiers. All right. All those fun little 24s and 21s and 67s and 62s and 19s and 81s. All
And
the
99.
and 99s, that's right. All 57s. All these things that you're going to learn to throw onto the end of a code to give it, it's just added information, y'all. That's all it is, added information. Okay. You're going to learn some of the tips and tricks to recognizing when those need to be applied. And there's not a ton that are used all the time. There really aren't. And again, there's a list of them in the book, so not something that you need to worry about memorizing. Okay. We're going to look at evaluation and management coding, which what evaluation and management is, or E&M. That is your office visits, your therapy visits, inpatient and outpatient, urgent care, any like your office visits and things like that. Not a surgery that's done, but the kind of visit or encounter. That's the encounter was the word I was looking for. What kind of encounter did that person have? Was it a telemedicine visit? Was it a new patient office visit? A established patient office visit? Things like that. We're going to look at all the details of what qualifies and what doesn't, and learn all about that. And then understanding medical decision making, or MDM, and level complexities. And that ties into your E&M coding. When we talk about medical decision making and level complexity, What we're talking about there is like, say, for a regular office visit, you have about 4 levels of office visits. Okay. The more complicated or the more history that that patient who's being seen, the more complex their case is, the higher a level of complexity is going to be involved in figuring it out, into entering in that information, into going over that patient's records. The more time they're going to have to spend, that's all going to up the level of complexity. All right. And we're going to look at some really cool shortcut tables to help you figure those things out, and a lot of fun stuff. Y'all are doing great with this stuff, so we don't have any reason to think that would not continue on with CPT. Y'all have caught on to ICD-10 really, really well. I know myself and the other instructors are super proud of you guys for how y'all have just kind of jumped in there and took it by the horns and ran with it. You're doing great. And I gotta also give kudos to my new students who do not have their manuals yet, or are doing everything via internet. Y'all are troopers, and way to stick with it. I know it's frustrating, and I apologize for that. We're still waiting on updates for your manuals. And as soon as I have an update, y'all know I'll pass it along. But thank y'all for that. Thank y'all for sticking with it. And are there any questions for me?
I did the test already. I did a couple days ago. For number 37, I'm not sure if all the tests are the same or if they're different for each student or whatever, but for
They're
mine, for number 37,
They're
can you,
different for each class.
okay. Well, can you look at the answers again? Because I'm pretty sure that the answer that is saying is correct is not correct.
Was it a coding question?
Yes.
Okay, I grade all those manually anyway.
Okay, it wasn't
And
a write-in coding
I haven't gone
question,
through
though.
it yet. Yeah.
Okay, but it wasn't a write-in. I don't think, or no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It was a write-in,
It
I
was.
believe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Most of the time, I think I might be one of the only instructors that sets exams that have y'all type it in yourselves. I think most everybody else uses the multiple choice format. But I like letting y'all get there on your own. So I kind of set my class up like that. But when I do that, I understand that there's going to be variations, and the computer will almost always mark it wrong, even if it's right on some of those variations. So I will go in and look at, if you missed a question, I'll go in and look at it and manually grade it.
okay, because the issue I'm having is I did the first part and it marked it wrong on it. So on my second attempt, I put it according to the answer that it said. But I know it's not correct.
Okay. I'll look at, you said it was number 37
Yes.
on the chapter 5, 6, 7.
Yes, on the final exam.
All right. I'll definitely take a look at that, Chastity. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Any other questions or concerns for me while we're here, guys? No? All right. Well,
No, ma'am.
Awesome. Thank you. If y'all don't have anything else for me, that's all I've got for y'all this week. Just, focus on getting 152 wrapped up, and we'll see you guys next week in 153. Have a blessed weekend. Stay safe out there.
Bye, y'all too.